We've got Jeff Berwick on the show, and I think everybody knows Jeff from the Dollar Vigilante, from In Acapulco, from being in Bitcoin at $3, from being right about a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's just, do you ever get tired of being right about predicting the future?
Thanks for the easiest softball intro question there. I have to say, it is kind of bizarre. I've been doing this since I was young, even with the internet. When it first came out, I think you're around my age or so you probably remember.
Yeah, you're older than me, I think. But
okay. Yeah, so you probably remember when it first came out in like 1993, and then 1994. I already started an internet company. I was waiting for it. I was like, when are they going to connect all the computers? And then I started a website design company, and I'd go around to companies, big public companies, they're worth like $10 or $100 million or $1 billion, some of them, and say, you need a website. And they'd go, what's a website? And I'd be like, it's on the internet. And they'd go, what's the internet?
Yeah.
So even way back then, everyone thought I was crazy. I quit my job at a bank the day that I heard about the internet, basically. And everyone's like, you're crazy. And then I started Canada's biggest financial website and all that kind of stuff. So then Bitcoin I was a little late, actually, compared to many of my friends, Trace Mayer and other people. Trace was one of the people who first told me about it, actually on Doug Casey's estancia in Cafayate in Argentina around a campfire. It's one of those things you never forget when you first heard about Bitcoin, for me personally. And again, I recommended it at $3, and a lot of people, up until about 2017, when it hit 20,000, everyone, Peter Schill and all these kind of people were like, it's a Beanie Babies, it's a scam, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I've been doing that. And now, of course, we've been working on this book now. I actually want to ask you when we started. I don't even remember, but we actually wrote most of the book. It was almost ready when the COVID's pandemic started.
Yeah.
And then we were like, well, this is what we told people was coming. Not exactly like we knew it was going to be a fake virus scamdemic, but we knew there was going to be a major crisis, sort of like the next 9/11, that they were going to be behind. So right in that moment, we were like, okay, we have to rewrite the book quite a bit, because all the stuff we said is going to happen is now happening. So This is quite interesting, in my opinion, though, because we're putting out a book which talks all about what's going on right now with the scamdemic, but we're right in the middle of it right now. It's not over at all, and it probably is not going to be. And so we're kind of like, it's kind of like if we wrote a book about what an inside job 9/11 was, like 6 months after 9/11, right? Like, right. And all that stuff continued on for a long time. The war of terror. So it's very interesting timing, but I think almost perfect timing in a way. And the fact the book's coming out just like right before the selection, right in the craziest year of all time. And as you pointed out, a lot of people used to make fun of preppers. They'd make fun of people like us saying, oh, there's going to be a crisis, the dollar's going to collapse, all this kind of stuff. Well, I think most people are realizing now that is actually happening. So this book's coming out right in the middle of it happening.
Yeah. And so to answer your question, when did it all start? I can tell you exactly when it started. The book started in June of 2018. I was in Costa Rica, and I started writing what I thought would be like kind of like the framework that we would work to fill in. And that's because there's a picture of me sitting on my laptop on the balcony in Costa Rica, and you could see the ocean outside, and I'm on it. I mean, I'm in Costa Rica, so it's like you want to be outside and everything, but I was so inspired, like, okay, let's just, let's get this thing down. And then we started on this and started writing it and compiling it. And I was thinking it would be great if it was launched for 2020 in Acapulco, and that didn't wind up happening, but it was almost done. And then right around March, the Corona situation kicks off, and we're like, we need to see where this goes, because this is too important of a situation to put the book out before it. We need to see how it goes. So it's taken about 6 months. We've kind of evaluated it, added more into the book, which I think made it more relevant. Changed some of the future tense to past tense on some of the events, because they wound up happening before we had a chance to get the book out, which is funny. But the book is called The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. And what we tried to do with this, I think we did a pretty good job, is make the comparison between how you would take down an empire and how you would take down a building, like, a 47-story glass and steel high-rise building that maybe came down in the afternoon of September 11th. And so when you do that, so we wanted to make this comparison so that it would be easy for people to understand. So the main core chapters of it, major chapters, are a rotting foundation, which explains the systemic issues that are happening, the pre-weakening of the building, which explains some of the policies that have hurt America over the years, identifying the support columns, which is these are the things that need to be destroyed in order to take down this empire. We have rigging the detonators, which is the way that they'll do it. We explain how they'll do it. Who wired the building? Basically an explanation of who wants this to happen. You would assume that nobody wants the empire to come down. That would be a false assumption. Many people want this to end. We then go to ringing the alarm bells, and that is what to look for before it all comes down and blows. We're very specific about this. We're making sure that we're giving actionable information that people can read this and get an idea and then take this and make decisions in their life based on it. Next chapter, pushing down the plunger. That's past the point of no return, really, where we're getting. And the last thing is clearing the debris. And the interesting thing about clearing the debris is that, like anything major, when there's major changes, it's going to hurt a lot of people, but there's going to be opportunities as well. It's not to say that you would be profiting from the misery of others, but this is going to happen. It's going to happen regardless. This empire is coming down, and so you're not going to be able to stop it. You're going to want to get to higher ground. If we describe this as a tsunami coming in fact, we put that in the book towards the end, this explanation of the Thailand tsunami, where the water recedes. Curious people that don't know any better go down to the beach and say, isn't it weird that the water has receded we can't even see it anymore? But the smart people, the people with experience, the people that had seen this before and recognized the signs, knew what that meant. They went straight to higher ground and they survived this. Now, what we're trying to explain with this book is that you're not going to be able to stop the tsunami. But you can still there's time for you to get to higher ground, get your friends, get your family, whoever will listen to you, get there, and you're going to make it through this. And then when it's all done, there's going to be some amazing opportunities. So it's not all doom and gloom. But, what do you... I don't even really know where to start with this, because it's like what we're currently living through is within the last couple of days, silencing and deplatforming on social media. We have an election coming up. The insanity's kicking in for sure. Where do you see the end of 2020 going?
Well, it's October now, so we only got 2 months left. This has been pretty amazing year. Just to actually see it all through our eyes, through our experience, having looked into this for like decades. We knew something like this was going to happen. So as soon as it happened, I have to admit, like for the first couple of days, a bunch of people on the internet were freaking out. There's this virus. It's going to kill everyone. Look, there's photos of people in Wuhan, China. They're just dropping dead in the streets. Yeah. That all turned out to be all fake, of course. But, within a few days, I started looking at what they're putting out. And I'm like, there's something fishy here. And then they're like, everyone in Italy's dying. You look into it, 99% of them didn't die from COVID AIDS. Right. Typical, they control the media so they can put out whatever they want. They can get everyone scared. And it really only took, I'd say, maybe a week or two of looking at everything, the numbers they're putting out. I'm like, these numbers don't even make any sense. They don't even have tests. What are they talking about? They haven't even identified what this thing is, right? Within a few weeks, I'm like, okay, so this is their new 9/11. We were waiting for it. We didn't know exactly how it was going to come. And it was right around then that I said, and we talked a lot back then. We were like, should we put the book out now? And I was like, let's just wait and make sure here. And really what showed me that this wasn't a little flash in the pan, little problem that was going to go away, was when they did the second waves in this summer. They said it was going to happen in the fall. And I think the reason they did in the summer is a lot of people were already waking up to this isn't a dangerous thing. So they really went hard. They said, it's a second wave, and they shut everything down again. And it was right around that point I said, okay, so this is definitely going to be going on for a while, so we can talk about it in that context. And now we're in October, and they're locking down again, and for no reason whatsoever. And really, as we talk about in the book, this is part of a planned collapse, a controlled demolition of the entire thing. Of course, at the Dollar Vigilante, I've been talking since 2010 about the dollar is going to collapse. And I said probably by the end of this decade, which is 2020, almost at the start of 2020, the dollar started to collapse. Everything started to collapse. Yeah. And it was all on purpose. And, they didn't have to do it on purpose, in my opinion. They could have just let it all collapse, but they want a controlled demolition. They want to put in all their agendas as this all happens. So they're, as the dollar collapses, now they're talking, it's going to be a digital currency from a one world central bank, all these kinds of things. The World Economic Forum's talking about the Great Reset, which is, we've talked about this for years. There's so much debt it's unpayable in every single way, by every country, by every almost person. Like it's a debt-based money system, fiat currencies with nothing backing it. So this is the natural evolution of a debt-based fiat currency system. It will go into everyone's indebted at the end, and it goes into hyperinflation. And then there'll be this great reset, which they're actually doing. So they actually caused this to kind of blame this financial collapse and the economic collapse, which was going to happen anyway, yes, on something that isn't them. It's the invisible enemy. You can't make this stuff up. It's invisible and you can't see it, and no one seems to die from it. But that's what caused all this stuff. And of course, this is all in the book. But this has been long in process for not even just decades, but centuries.
Yeah, that invisible enemy, they love it. They love that one. Whether it's terrorists around every corner that don't, I put in my first book that the stats show that you are more likely to get killed by a vending machine falling on you on a Thursday than you are to get killed by a terrorist in the United States. But it's a disproportionate amount of coverage by the dirty and corrupted mainstream media that would make you think that terrorists are around every corner, that everybody is dying from corona. And it's funny because when it got to this, like, we had already sort of pumped the brakes on putting the book out because we were just watching to see where things went. And when the summer kicked in and and everyone was kind of going back into the stores, they did an interesting thing. They immediately started to make the masks mandatory. And I think that the feeling was, at least from our perspective, was, well, when there's no visual representation of the virus, meaning no dead bodies stacked on the sidewalk, like they kind of led us to believe, and we're, by the way, we're grateful that there's not that didn't happen. But when we didn't see that, then they needed some sort of visual representation to remind you that the virus was still there, and it became masks. And then it was like, because first they said, don't wear a mask, they don't really work. Then it was, oh my God, if we catch you without a mask, we're going to fine you, or we're going to arrest you in the park when you're playing with your kids, or we're going to raid your gym in New Jersey, or we're going to do all these insane things. I think the problem that we've had, the frustration, I should say, that we've had, is the inconsistency in enforcement and the total dishonesty of the mainstream media when they show rioting and say that's fine. They're not social distancing, but it's for a good cause. And then the Trump rally happens, and neither one of us are big Trump fans, but the Trump rally happens and they're like, super spreader event, everybody's going to die, and you're like, really? Like, I get it. The media has an agenda, but they're so dishonest that they're not doing themselves any favors because they're losing credibility every single day. And now as we get into the winter, we're going to see this second wave. And of course, Bill Gates has promised us that it's coming with his big smile and all that nonsense. So is this our biggest problem? Is the corona situation our biggest problem, or do we have bigger problems than that?
Well, the thing is, coronavirus has nothing to do with any of these things going on in the world. It's all a ruse. It's like there's nothing actually happening. Canada, for decades, reported the amount of flu. People went in and got tested for the flu. I don't even know if they can do that, honestly. The whole medical system's a total sham, in my opinion. Oh, yeah. It's mostly all lies. Everything they tell you, it's mostly to sell you these pharmaceuticals. It's the pharmaceutical industrial complex. But apparently Canada had been doing some tests for the flu over the last 20 years, and it was like 20,000, 40,000 people actually getting tested for it. Mm-hmm. This year came out, 6 people in Canada had the flu. About 20 or 30,000 had the COVIDs, though. They cured the flu. flu. The flu just went away, and now it's COVID-19. Where this goes from here, they have incredibly nefarious plans, in my opinion. We talk about some of this in the book, but it's ongoing. So we're probably going to have to put out like a pretty updated version in a year or so, I'll presume, if anyone's around to even read it at that point. It could get that bad. Like, this is really crazy what they're trying to do. You look at the winter, like, how can they still even be doing this? Like, it's like there's nothing going on, and so many people still believe it. And that's how they get away with most of this, is they literally have most of the world brainwashed and hypnotized. The television programming is literal hypnosis. They brainwash them for 12 years of government indoctrination camps, so they can't think. They don't teach them how to think. They teach them how to memorize mostly lies from the government. And so this could go on for quite a long time, and with the support of a lot of the population. It's kind of sad, although we are seeing a lot of people, like, of all the things that's happened in my lifetime to wake people up to what's really going on, this is by far the biggest. We're seeing, after 9/11, there was definitely some started to wake up. Mm-hmm. Even after the 2008 financial crash that you talked a lot about in your book and that sort of thing, that woke up some people. But nothing like this. I had one friend tell me, she goes, I can't believe it. I go to my church and my mom's down there in the basement playing, crib or whatever with her friends, and all they're talking about is David Icke videos. And I'm like, that's a huge change, because 10 or 20 years ago, if you even mentioned David Icke, if they knew who you're talking about, most people go, you're crazy. He's crazy. He believes in lizard people and all this kind of stuff. They were programmed that way by the media, by the way. And now so many people are, this is, in many ways, I talk to spiritual people a lot. I'm quite into that. And even sort of hippie types, these sort of people who kind of, see what's going on the far bigger scheme of things. Like hippies will say, this is the age of Aquarius or whatever. In the Bible, they say the apocalypse. And every single thing they talk about is actually happening right now. And the apocalypse actually just means the lifting of the veil. It means that people will start to realize the truth. And that is exactly what we're seeing right now. I would estimate at least hundreds of millions of people across the world who never thought about this stuff before, all of a sudden are starting to think about it. That is absolutely massive. And I think that's also why it's so great to get this book out right now. And, if everyone orders just the pre-sale, which should be up by the time you see this video, if we can get like 10,000 or 50,000, I don't know how many, that pre-buy it. It's under $10 for a Kindle version. This will be the biggest selling book. Maybe on the first day, I don't know, I don't track it, but probably one of the biggest selling books of the year on its first day. Yeah. And if it's exposing this whole system, that's going to get very interesting because a lot of people will start to hear about it. And who knows, maybe it'll sell 1 million copies and all of a sudden everyone's talking about it and everyone's reading it. And then what are these governments going to do once hundreds of millions of people really know, like us, what's going on? They won't be able to continue in the way that they've continued, and it actually could get into a pretty hardcore genocide at that point, because what they want is actually to reduce the world's population by about 90 or 95%. And they've laid this out in numerous plans. Bill Gates' dad is a eugenicist. We talk a lot about all this stuff in the book, of course, but they won't stop even if a lot of people wake up, but they won't be able to continue the way they have. They'll have to do something like drop nuclear bombs on cities and stuff, and they'll do that. They did 9/11. They blew up skyscrapers right downtown New York, right in front of everyone. They're brazen. They don't care. They'll kill whoever they have to put their agendas forward.
Yeah, they will. And I'll tell you, so yeah, people should definitely get the book pre-sale. Because if it makes enough noise, it might go away. Unfortunately, I mean, we've seen the censorship. When you start to get on topics that are really important, they have a tendency to silence you. So yes, we're talking about the book, and yes, we want people to buy it, but buy it soon. don't sit around and wait for Christmas. And yes,
I have a feeling, Charlie, that it'll if it gets pretty big, they'll take it off of Amazon. Yeah, and in my opinion, that'll be hilarious and great, because it's called the Streisand effect.
I'm begging them to do it after a couple of weeks or so, because we will use that as the ad campaign to start the writing of Controlled Demolition 2 Electric Boogaloo. That'll be out by the end of 2021. So for people that are interested in the book, so I'm going to read off some of the topics. It's not in any particular order, alphabetical or otherwise. It's just to give you an idea of some of the things we tackle. So it's filled with a lot. The CDC, obviously, Event 201, police brutality, private prisons, safe spaces, Agenda 2030, which includes climate change, lobbying, crony capitalism. If Jeff's writing a book, it's got to have the Federal Reserve in it, the death of American exceptionalism, the education system, our crumbling infrastructure, globalization, China, killing critical thinking, the military information terror complex. That is what we did to update the old term, the military industrial complex, which Eisenhower talked about. It was a great start. We needed to modernize it and bring it up to date. We did that in the book. I think it works really well. The division of the public is obviously key to this. It's in the book as well. We talk about false flags. We talk about New World Order. And I know people sort of roll their eyes and go, New World Order, get out of here, you conspiracy theorists. They call themselves the New World Order. We didn't make this term up. That's what they call themselves. And we talk about the permanent state and also some cryptocurrency. So it's not so much that it's doom and gloom, although, what we see is change. And change is scary, and change can be difficult, and change can hurt a lot of people. In fact, a lot of people will get hurt by this destruction. But it's not to say that everybody will. And frankly, there's some things that we've been living through in this American empire that need to go away anyway. And so one of the things that we do is we draw this comparison. I know that the first time somebody hears like, well, the American empire is going to collapse and go away. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you how to compare it to something. In the early 90s, we had the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union broke up. Everyone was like, wow, that was crazy that it happened. It happened internally. I mean, it was designed to come down. They were rigging currencies and they were manipulating it, and they brought that thing down. It's not so much that Russia went away, because Mother Russia still stayed, but all of those satellite countries, Czechoslovakia and Moldova and Yugoslavia and all these countries that were under that, they then returned to their independence, and Mother Russia sort of prioritized keeping them afloat. We feel like that's probably what's in store for the American empire. It's not so much that America itself is just dead and done and over. It's that the empire component, the 1,000 military bases, the use of the petrodollar, the using that leverage to, through the SWIFT system to just force countries into compliance. The rest of the world is getting really tired of our act. They're ready for the end of the American empire, starting indiscriminate wars, lying about things, blaming it on other countries, poisoning people. I mean, we're awful. We're the terrorists. Let's just be honest about this. I mean, talk about
we're not. They are.
Yeah, the people running the American empire are the terrorists that they purport to be hunting. So there's some parts of this that need to go away for the betterment of humanity. But this is being done by these globalists because in order for a one world government to come into power, there cannot be an existing superpower. They have to get rid of that. And so with the existing superpower, the American empire, out of the way, it makes things a lot easier to pull up to ramp up this one world government. And I know that people, when they hear that the first time, they go, well, that sounds a bit conspiratorial and a bit crazy. Yes, but just go look at what the World Economic Forum is proposing. And you tell me if that isn't the groundwork for the one world government, is it not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They've been, they've been talking, this is all in the book. They've been talking about this since the early 20th century about moving towards these kind of things. And of course, the United Nations was one of the first big steps towards that. Like I was saying, this whole thing was going to come down anyway. Everything's bankrupt. The U.S. government now, I can't even believe how much debt that thing has. It's like, it's just stunning to see how much. And the Federal Reserve printing up so much money, by far more than any central bank that I know of in the world, by far, is quickly destroying the dollar. And this was all going to happen anyway. Basically what's happening, in my opinion, and in many respects, is all the cockroaches are just stealing every last bit they can get right now before it all goes down. But like I said, it was going to go down anyway. So they're basically just putting it in people's heads that, because if it just went down, let's just say there was the word coronavirus or COVIDs or whatever it's called never even existed this year. But everything else that happened. The economy started to collapse. The financial markets started to collapse. The Fed's printing money into hyperinflation. They're locking people down. If there was no reason for that, people would get really mad, and they'd actually probably say, I think it's the government who caused this, or at least the government and the central banks, and they'd be 100% correct. Right. But instead what they do is they say they came out with their plan, and Bill Gates has been planning this. They had their Event 201 in November of last year, where they gave out plushy coronavirus dolls and talked about the exact plan, which actually came from the Rockefeller document, the Lockstep document, back in 2015, I think, where they laid out exactly what's happening this year to the letter, to the T. Yeah. It's like a roadmap. It's not they kind of made it look like, oh, in the future, maybe in 2020, there might be a virus and all this kind of stuff, right? They planned it all. So it's very, very interesting times. As far as, what people can do, first of all, educate yourself. And I think most people who follow your show or my channel know a lot of this stuff already. Yeah. So we're kind of preaching to the choir quite a bit, but it is very well laid out in about 400 pages how this all came about. But what we really need is more people to understand that kind of stuff. So get out there and share, tell people about the book or whatever you want, or tell people about this video. And those who know what's happening will have the best chance of not only surviving through all of this, but also profiting massively. We've been doing that for years. This year, I've made more money than I've ever made. Monero, one of my favorite cryptocurrencies, has tripled since February. All kinds of stuff. So we're all ready. And that was actually our tagline of the Dollar Vigilante, was surviving and prospering. So survive and profit during, so that's right now, and after the dollar collapse. And that's what we've been doing. We got into Bitcoin at $3. So we're huge precious metals people, and gold hit an all-time high just last month. Silver, it didn't hit an all-time high, but it's been skyrocketing. It was like $12 like at the start of the year, I think, or 14. And now it's like close to 30 or something. So or I think it's down a bit at the moment, but it hit around 30. So there's lots of ways, but really for anyone watching this, if you already know a lot of what we're talking about, you have a better chance than 99.999% of people on Earth to not only get through this, but profit from it. Because 99% of people on Earth don't know any of this stuff. And they actually believe the mainstream propaganda, the news. And they're like, oh, so the economy collapsed because of the virus. We just got to lock down for a few more years until they inject us with Bill Gates tracking vaccine. And they believe all that. And they're going to have a really tough few years. They're going to be locked in their house for years. They're going to be injecting themselves with poisons. They're going to submit to tracking. They're going to lose their jobs. Most of them already have. They're going to probably be put on welfare, universal basic income for a very small amount that will barely get by, and it'll be hyperinflating the dollar at the time, so it really won't buy hardly anything. Mm-hmm. And then there's people like us who know what's going on, and we're making fortunes. We're smart in where we stay. Like, I wouldn't want to be in downtown New York right now or downtown LA. And I've been saying that for years. And look at it now, right? Again, like another thing I had been saying, people are like, New York's turned into like just a horror movie or something. Yeah. and it's just getting started. So again, just, if you're already watching this, you're way ahead of the pack. If you don't know all the stuff and you want to get the book, get it, because it really lays it out really well. And then just keep following what we're doing, because we've been planning for this. This was the whole point of the Dollar Vigilante, was planning for what I call the dollar collapse, which is happening and will happen. But it's actually so much bigger than that. It's everything collapsing. And if you are smart and you know what's going to happen, you can do incredibly well.
Yeah, I would say if you're hearing this information and it's all making a lot of sense to you and it's logical and you've heard parts of it before, then buy the book for somebody else. Send it to them, because you're going to need to wake them up. This is one of the things where you're not going to get any credit for this early on. Right now, people will roll their eyes, maybe think that you're a bit off your rocker, you're doom and gloom or whatever. Your thank you will come later. when they realized that you did something nice for them, that you educated them about what was actually happening. Turn off your mainstream media. My God, turn that off. It's trying to run your life through fear. They have nothing else. When they don't have facts, when they don't have convincing arguments, they just use fear. And so that's what we've been experiencing the last couple of years. And Jeff and I kind of approached this in an interesting way. What we're thinking is, it's like, if we know this information from Dollar Vigilante or from the work that I've done, the books I've written, or the podcast Macroaggressions or whatever, if we know this information, we have it, we are aware of it, we know it to be true, and we don't tell you about it, we couldn't live with ourselves. You know what I mean? We to have this information and sit on it and not share it would be a crime. So what we wanted to do was put it together in a way that was entertaining, informative, and relevant. That's part of the reason why we needed to get the Corona situation in there, because to make it as relevant as possible. We're not Nostradamus, we're not sitting around reading tea leaves or anything. We're looking at information and making logical and rational deductions based on that. And in some of these cases, like I said, we had to go in and write this, change it to the past tense, because what we were talking about actually wound up happening while we were writing the book. So we know we're on the right track, and we take no pleasure in saying this about the American empire coming down, because we know that a byproduct of that is going to be a lot of people getting hurt. But we can't stop it. We can only discuss it. We can only explain it and get people to position themselves accordingly. Like if you're, like you said, you've been talking about Monero for a while and the benefits to that. If people would just listen to you, they would make some money. If people would just trust that maybe something that they don't know, that's fine. They can make some money. Get this book, send it to people around you that are maybe unsure of this whole thing, or maybe think that you're a little bit, a little bit of an alarmist. I assure you, as loud as you're sounding the alarm right now, you are not sounding it loud enough, because what is coming is unstoppable, and it's going to change society. And like you said, whether Corona was coming or not, doesn't matter. That's the excuse that they're pinning this on. They always have to have an excuse. The bankers aren't going to say, you know what, we hyperinflated the money supply and things got out of hand. We did too much QE and it's all our fault. They're never going to say that. The only thing they're going to say is it was somebody else's fault. And what better person to take the blame than an inanimate object, a virus that you can't see that magically appears out of nowhere? I mean, it's almost as if they knew it was coming. Oh, wait. They did. So we talk about Lockstep, we talk about Event 201, we talk about Crimson Contagion and Dark Winter and all of these simulations that go live. Like I said, we're not sitting around, speculating here. We're reading their simulations, and their simulations are the pretext for what's coming, whether it's a simulation before 9/11 or a simulation before the 7/7 bombing, or Event 201. If you know where to look and you see the drills happening, you'll know what's coming, and it'll seem like magic, and you'll look like you're Karnak the Magnificent, but you're really not. So let's see.
Well, I'll just say to that I first started looking into all this stuff just after 9/11. And honestly and truthfully, I actually believed what they said about 9/11 for about a year or two.
Me too.
I was incredibly busy with my own internet company. So, I'd walk by CNN in the airport. They'd be like, Osama bin Laden we just found his passport 2 blocks from the road. He's the one who did it. And I was like, oh, I guess he did it. So, okay, wow, that was terrible. I can't believe he did that. And it was actually, I found out through the documentary Loose Change, which Luke Rudowski was very involved in. I didn't know Luke back then at all. And when I saw that, I was like, what? And just went down the rabbit hole. I'd been going down the rabbit hole on economics and money and central banking for a few years before that. Probably the first book that woke me up to that was The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. And then 9/11 happened. I looked into that. I'm like, what else is a lie? Well, I spent the last 20 years looking into literally everything, and literally everything we're told is a lie. Yeah. And so it's kind of a after 20 years of this, it's finally going into sort of a book format. And like you said, it kind of can, like a lot of people say, how do you know this stuff's happening? It's like, they say it, they tell you. Right. like when you mentioned the book, it might be a bit conspiratorial. I'd say like over 90% of stuff in there is just facts. That is what they said and what they did. And we might speculate that this is tied to that or whatever and things like that. But it's just a factual book about what's been going on. And when, most people just don't have the time or the desire to know all this stuff. And that's totally fine. Some people, maybe all they like is gardening. Perfect. Just garden all the time. It's totally fine. But people like yourself and myself, something about us, we want to know the truth. And we are very curious as well. I don't know about you, Charlie, but you probably are very curious like me. And it's like, yeah, I want to know what's going on. And it's really hard to like take centuries of information and actually connect all the dots. And in many ways, people like David Icke have been doing that for decades. So he's been a big part of connecting those dots, and we've been connecting the dots ourselves. And once you connect all the dots, and it'll be in the book, it just makes perfect sense what's going on. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's what I see. And then it just becomes obvious. I think that part of the reason, a lot of people are just busy because they're extorted for most of the money they make every year from the mafia called government. Then their businesses are ruined through the mafia called government, putting regulations and all these kinds of things on them. The money system is a total scam. So if they try to save money, they're just going to end up with nothing. So a lot of people are working 2 or 3 jobs, so they don't have time to look into all this stuff. And then you have other people who just don't want to, and that's fine. But I think a big part of it is a lot of people have fear of knowing this information. And there's just only one thing I can tell you, and that is the truth shall set you free. There is nothing to fear from knowing this. In fact, if you really knew the case, it's much more fearful. Like you're in much more danger not knowing the truth, because you're going to be, as Charlie said, one of those people on the beach wondering why the water just went out. While other people who know the truth are like, okay, let's go up the mountain. And so, there's nothing at all to fear, but people do have that fear. I've seen it so many times. Even my own father, I tried to explain to him about what I found out about 9/11. This is around 5 years after 9/11. And I started to explain it to him, and I only got about a minute in. He said, stop. And I went, what? He goes, I don't want to know. And I just looked at him because to me, I'm like, am I your son? Because I want to know everything. Like I find this incredibly fascinating. Yeah. And he said to me, he goes, listen, I just retired. I'm on my pension. I don't want to know this stuff. I just want to enjoy my last few years. And I said, okay, if that's what you want, that's totally fine. But that is the case with a lot of people. They just don't want to know. But for many reasons, as we pointed out, you're much better off knowing all this stuff than not knowing it, because you can be fooled. And for all the religious people who read the Bible, they talk a lot about Satan fooling you all the time. And this system is kind of like a satanic system. I don't know, once you get to that level, how connected it is to, Satan or whatever, but it is a very satanic system. And everything they do is to fool you. And we even have in the book, of course, talking about the CIA director talking about, I think in the 80s, our job will be complete when everything that Americans believe is false. Yeah. They've been talking about this. And it was actually even before that with the Soviet Union guys. They were doing this stuff. Of course, Nazi Germany with the propaganda, Edward Bernays. We talk about all this stuff in the book. But when you see it all laid out, it's pretty obvious where it's all going. And, for anyone who says this is a doom and gloom book, this is, in my opinion, a incredibly inspiring book, because if you didn't know this information, once you're done reading this book, you will have the manual to what is happening on Earth, and you can take the steps to not end up in FEMA camps, not end up genocided, not end up bankrupted, not end up basically under lockdown for the rest of your life, not end up injected with poisons. You'll have all this information. So it's quite the opposite of doom and gloom. If enough people read it, and you said we can't stop it, in a way we could. The people could, but they'd have to wake up a lot more than they are now. We'd need 100 or 1,000 times more, and that is possible. I see that going in that direction. And like I said, once enough people wake up, they won't be able to do it exactly how they want. They'll still try, though. But if enough people know this stuff, their power gets taken away dramatically. And if they make changes, and we talk about this at the very end of the book, what you can do personally, if you walk away from all their systems right now, you stop paying their extortion fees, you stop voting, you stop watching the mainstream media, you stop using their money, because it's US dollars is not your money. It's the Federal Reserve's money. It's a private company, and it's got a pyramid with an all-seeing eye on it. They're very nefarious and very occult. But that's not your money. Don't ever say they're destroying our dollar. It's not your dollar. But you know what could be yours? Bitcoin or Monero. That actually is yours. It's not owned by anyone except for you. It's actually you become your own bank. So right at the very end of the book, we talk about all these things, and if people didn't know it, it's going to change their lives forever, and much for the better, I would think.
Yeah, and there's one of the main chapters that we have identifying the support columns. One of the aspects that needs to be destroyed for this destruction of the empire to happen is the destruction of critical thinking. And I would say that has already been well underway. We are fluorided out of our minds. We're dumbed down with the education system, Common Core, all of that. We've got GMO foods. God knows what they're spraying on us. Who knows what sort of EMF type technologies. We're walking around in a chemical soup of radiation everywhere. I mean, we are at a severe disadvantage for trying to understand what's going on. But there are a few of us that still have the ability for critical thinking. I put an interesting quote in my first book from Dr. Russell Blaylock, who's a neurosurgeon, and he was talking about how they've dumbed down everybody in the United States to a point where it's just a sea of people that are unable to excel at anything, that have to look to the government for a handout to figure out, to navigate this life. But then there's a small percentage of high IQ people that are like above it and can see the whole plan. And it all makes sense. They can see what's actually going on. But because the masses have been so dumbed down, part of it is not their fault. Part of it is willing participants and dumbing themselves down. I mean, it's a component of this for sure. But if they can get everybody to not know, what's up and down, they keep them, dependent on corporate mainstream media to tell them what's really happening, which we of course know is not the plan. That is entirely preventable. The dumbing down of society is totally preventable. We just have to acknowledge that it's happening to us. So some of this stuff, some of the content in the book forces people to get real about the reality of this situation. They need to take responsibility for their own lives. If you're lacking in some of this, if you've got kids and you're sending them to government indoctrination camps, which are otherwise known as schools, stop referring to them as public schools. Call them government schools. That's what they are. Changes everything. I had David Rodriguez on my show a couple of weeks ago. Obviously he's at Anarchapulco every year. He explains that, real simple steps. This is not brain surgery here. How you can get your kids out of that system. You don't want them in there. We might be giving away a little bit from the book, but you don't want your kids in government indoctrination camps.
Well, I think people are starting to wake up to that now, right? And a lot of them, the schools are actually shut down themselves. There's actually a lot of positives to all this stuff. The government schools being shut down is a massive positive. All of a sudden, kids are at home. They're around their parents again, which is how it's supposed to be. Yep. They realize that learning is something they can do on their own. They don't need to go sit there for 8 hours with a government bureau rat giving them propaganda all day. And I think, homeschooling and unschooling, there's been nothing bigger than this, because even if you did want to send them back to a government school, which is child abuse in my opinion, now when they go, it's worse than prison. It's like stand 6 feet apart, have your mask on, you're in your plexiglass shield, you're being reported by other kids. It's basically like jail. Actually, jail's better. I've been in jail a few times. I would rather go to jail than schools, really. And
you get a better education in jail.
True. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was just saying the other day, some of the nicest people I've ever met were in jail. And some of the worst people I've ever met were the cops and the people running the jail. These people are just horrible people.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's off topic. But the point is that there is some positives to all this stuff going on. And people might not even realize they're positives at this point. But if people can start to realize that they don't need the government indoctrination camps. In fact, the government indoctrination camps are destroying their kids. And if they start just even homeschooling right now, and a lot of people are losing their jobs anyway, that could change a lot, because a big part of how we got into this mess is having the government indoctrinate kids for most of their most important years of their life. Even Vladimir Lenin said, "Give me your child for 4 years, and the seed I plant will never be uprooted." And of course, I don't remember if we talked about the Prussian system. I think we did in the book as well. But that's where this whole schooling system came from, right?
Yeah, and David Rodriguez is great. He's doing the Gatto Institute now, and I told him, like, your timing couldn't have been any better. I mean, you've got this lockdown. It's forcing people to reevaluate things. You know, one of the nice things that's going to come out of this Corona situation, there's not a whole lot of them, but there are a few. It's that people are reevaluating their relationship with their work life. You know, they're no longer having to go into the office. They're reevaluating their relationship with the education system, because they're saying, well, we've got this Zoom option now, and kids are doing that. It's not perfect, but it's starting to give parents a little bit more confidence. Like, okay, well, you know, I can handle this. The one thing David told me that was the biggest hurdle, I think most people would agree, is that parents are like, I'm not qualified to be a teacher, to teach this stuff. But he would say you're actually more qualified, because you have a vested interest in your child. You are the only one that cares about your kid. A teacher can never care about your kid the way you can. And if you're talking about a public school teacher, well, listen, they probably have 30 kids in their class, and half of them aren't paying attention. They have parent-teacher conferences. I have a teacher friend in Las Vegas that had a parent-teacher conference for her second grade class. And there were like 28 kids in the class. And it's that time where you schedule out a half an hour all throughout the course of the day for the parents to come in and meet with you and evaluate how your kid is doing. Out of 28 kids, one parent showed up. It's like, well, if you don't care about your kids, why should we? That's government schools. That's what they do. They breed this out of you. And so to have this ability, this reset, like not the great reset that the World Economic Forum is talking about, but our own personal reset, where we're looking at the way we deal with our work life, the way we deal with education. It's been nice to have this break where people can kind of stop and think about things, because everyone's so busy that they're not thinking about things. They get 30 minutes on the nightly news. They think they're getting informed, which they're not, and they go about their lives thinking that they know what's happening. But with all this time off, I mean, podcast listens have gone way up. People online looking at interesting stories and reading new books has gone through the roof. So there are some benefits here. I would say, though, that the one thing that we're experiencing right now that does have me alarmed, and we definitely talk about this in the book, is the internet censorship, the censorship of voices, the censorship of people like you and me. YouTube's just had another big purge where they've gotten rid of, World Alternative Media and SGT Report and all these websites or content creators that are talking about these very important facts. And when you can't win the argument with your own facts, you're left to just silence the opposition. And that's what they're doing. It's a dirty trick. Where do you see this internet, social media silencing going from here?
Well, we knew this was coming. We've been talking about this for years. I've been prepared for it. We've moved all of our stuff off of to other sites that don't censor, to decentralized blockchain-based sites that you can't censor. It's impossible to do. We've got stuff on our own site and stuff like that. In many ways, people just need to wake up. It's really an issue of people realizing what's going on a little bit. And of course, this book can help. But, if enough people woke up, then no one would use YouTube anymore. No one uses Facebook anymore. I stopped using Facebook a long time ago. It's basically just the CIA data collection service. And they won't let you say anything you want on there anyway. And YouTube, same thing. So, if enough people woke up, these things would just go away. Just like they've become like MySpace.
Right.
The great thing about the internet, and having been around the internet since well before it even started, and I was waiting for it to happen, is it's really hard to actually really stop it. So, for example, all those people you just mentioned, World Alternative Media and all them, they still have websites. They're still on other sites. They're just not on basically the CIA's sites, which is kind of good. And there's so many good and bad ways of looking at things. But with YouTube basically purging almost everyone now, except for the mainstream media and people who agree with the mainstream media, they're going to kill their own site. And in many ways, what the governments are doing and the central banks, the governments are... A lot of people across the world are talking about civil wars or just burning down governments now because of what the government's doing. Many people are talking about hyperinflation from the central banks now. And what are the central banks doing? They're destroying their own currencies. In some ways, this is actually the best thing that could have ever happened. And if you were smart, like, for example, so many people, there's actually literally, this is October, people still wearing like masks in their houses, scared to death they're going to die still. They've been like this all year. I can't imagine how destroyed their adrenal system is, their immune system. From fear is like stress, and fear is the worst thing you can have in your body. And they just pump it in through the mainstream media all day. So these people are so they didn't pay attention. They haven't paid attention yet. They're having the worst year of their lives. They lost their job. They're scared to death. They're scared to even go outside of their house. Meanwhile, people like us, we know what's going on. So we've been fine. I've been traveling all over the place, going to parties and great places. I'm in Mexico where hardly anyone cares what the government says. And so like the government might try to shut something down. And after a couple of days, they're just like, screw it. We're not listening to those guys. So if you're smart and you know what's going on, you can enjoy yourself in the midst of something that other people consider to be the worst thing ever. So in many ways, everything in life is about your mind and what it is focused on. And if you focus on the negative, you would generally go into negative and more negative. Your mind creates that for you. And likewise if you're focused more on the positive. So if you have the knowledge and the truth sets you free, and then you have a positive outlook on things, you can have a great time in the middle of a horrible time. And I would just say, I'd much rather have a great time than a horrible time. And so it's a great place to be.
I've been to Acapulco a couple of times. You always have a good time.
Yeah, why not, right? Yeah. We're fighting the world's biggest enemy here, which is governments and central banks, and possibly Satan himself at the highest levels of it all. We're literally fighting these guys, but we're just having fun. We're exposing them. We're making tons of money. Why not? Like, why should I be depressed all the time? I was depressed like 5 years ago. Very depressed for a number of reasons, but I worked through all of that. I did the self-work for years. I still do it. I do it every day now, meditation, all kinds of therapies, hypnotherapy, everything. But yeah, why not have a great time taking down mankind's biggest enemies and just having a good time doing it? And why not? What they want, what the system wants, is for you to be so scared of even speaking back to the system or fighting back. And we see that so often. People are like, I wanted to sign up for this petition or whatever, but I didn't want the government to know I agreed with that or whatever. It's like, screw it, just have fun. Be smart though. Be very smart, use privacy tools, all that kind of stuff. That's stuff we talk about a lot at the Dollar Vigilante if you don't get our newsletter. But yeah, be smart. Like, I'm not stupid. I try not to use anything that's Google, CIA, FBI book. I'm trying to get off anything Bill Gates, Microsoft. Right. Because they're watching everything you're doing. And it's kind of funny with me because I do everything so outwardly that there's like nothing. I don't hide anything about my life from anyone. So it's not like it's not like I need this privacy stuff. Like, you could just spend 10 minutes, you can find everything you want about me. Yeah. But yeah, be smart, because the harder we make it for them, the better. And so if they're trying to read everyone's emails, but 99% of them are all encrypted because people are using things like ProtonMail, not Gmail, which is the CIA's, you're actually using the CIA's email. Use encrypted email. They can't really crack it. If they really wanted to crack one email, it'd take them like a year. And then it might be just a picture of your cat or something, right? So just don't make it easy for them. If they give you a fine, don't pay it, or at least go to the court and fight it, and just clog up the courts. Don't pay your extortion. You actually don't even need to. So there's no law that says you have to. It's another mind scam. It's another fraud that they pulled over on people. So yeah, there's tons of ways to live very well, no matter how bad things get. And we'll see how bad things get. But, the world's a big place. And I've been talking a lot about, you might want to live in some other areas. For me, Mexico's a great place. So you just kind of just make sure you have those kind of options. And I know a lot of people say, well, I don't have enough money for that kind of stuff. Well, get working. There's nothing but opportunity right now. As you pointed out with teaching, be an online teacher or something like that. You just get enough students and you do a really good job, so they give you a good recommendation. You just get more and stuff like that. Or anything basically online right now, which is something I've been saying for years. People should try to get their lives mostly online, because then you're completely able to move. And it's not like we're talking about anything that hasn't happened in human history before. This happens all the time. Just look at anyone in Europe during the 1940s. It was like Einstein and all these guys were like scrambling to get out of there. Yeah. And rightfully so, and smartly so, right? Like, why wouldn't they? And just don't limit yourself to what you're told that you can do. You can actually pretty much do anything. This is another secret they don't tell you, but they put it in your mind, because your mind controls your reality, that you can't do anything. You have to, well, if you go to 12 years of our schools and 4 more years, then maybe you can get an entry-level job here, and then maybe you can get a death contract, which is French, mortgage, and then maybe in 40 years you get your pension, which will not be there. It's not even going to be there next year. No. So forget all about it. Read this book. It'll explain a lot to you. Sign up to our stuff. Subscribe to, I want to mention for your podcast. It's a great podcast. This is going to be on my channel as well. So if you like this kind of stuff, subscribe. It's a new podcast, so not many people know about it, but you do some really good stuff. So make sure you subscribe to that.
Yeah, thank you. Tell people. I want to know, for my audience, I want them to know about the Dollar Vigilante. What's going on there? You've run in like a multi-million-dollar operation there that has been educating people about the reality of this fiat currency scam system that is so obvious. Once somebody educates you about it, you can't go through your life without seeing the fraudulent nature of it everywhere. It is so crystal clear. Dollar Vigilante is literally changing people's lives. You guys are waking people up to this scam. Tell people what it's all about there.
Well, like I said, the tagline was in 2010, surviving and prospering during and after the dollar collapse. And I said it would start to begin by the end of the decade, which it did. And we actually do something called Austrian Economics, and not a lot of people know about it. If you go to a government or a typical college, they'll never teach you true economics. It's basically like everything. Like when you go to become a doctor, if you want to do that because you want to help people be healthy, they spend half a day on nutrition. They spend 7 years and 11 months on how to give them all these pills that are going to kill them. Almost everything that's taught in colleges and all that kind of stuff, almost everything, like maybe not physics and stuff like that, or maybe a few other things. But for most part, most things are just totally lies. And economics is the same thing. In fact, central banking is a tenet of communism. So for anyone who lives in the US and go, we're not commies, well, your entire financial system is based on communism, with the money supply, with the money system from the Federal Reserve. And if you really want to know all about that, the book's about this big. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island by Geo Griffin. But just like what we talked about with the book, when you can see how everything works, it's very easy to do well in the system or against the system even. The big things we've been recommending for 10 years now, just about, is cryptocurrencies and precious metals, all at all-time highs, basically. Yeah. Got into Bitcoin at $3, Ethereum at $2. It's, what is it now, 600 or something, 1,000? All kinds of stuff like that. And we've got some new ones that we just came out with as well that we think are going to be huge. And I'll give you one free one right now. Look into Monero. It's going to be absolutely massive, in my opinion, XMR. So we just, when you know how things work, and most people just don't, even like people like Ben Bernanke, or what was that old lady who had Alzheimer's? Janet Yellen.
Yeah.
Like these people know nothing, zero about real economics.
They're paid to know nothing. They get paid to not know what's actually happening. And they do their job to the best of their ability to know nothing. They know nothing about nothing. You know?
Yeah, and they have no say in anything. They're basically just teleprompter readers, just like Obama, Trump, all these people. They're all just puppets for the machine. And they know nothing, and they make no decisions. The guys behind the curtain, just watch The Wizard of Oz to see how a lot of this stuff works, is making all the decisions. So hardly anyone, and this is on purpose. This is sort of like the CIA's plan. I don't know why these people are so, I consider it very evil that they want to fool everyone and destroy their lives because they can never figure out what's actually going on. It doesn't seem very nice to me. But once people understand some of this stuff, it just becomes very easy. And not to say it's super easy. It's not easy to pick, where things are going exactly, when to buy, when to sell, all that kind of stuff. It's not easy. But once you have the knowledge of how the whole system works, you have a 1,000% better chance than anyone else to succeed, because you go to guys on Wall Street, the guy who runs JP Morgan probably has no idea how central banking works. It's kind of all on purpose. They don't want anyone to know. But when you know, you have a huge advantage. So that's what we would do at the Dollar Vigilante. We're going to continue to do it. We've been making fortunes this year. And it's not just about the money as well. We also help people free themselves, stuff about being a permanent traveler or prior taxpayer, ways of setting up your life so that you're not under the control of all these systems, and that sort of stuff. So we've actually got a summit coming up in November. If anyone is interested in that, TDB Summit, we haven't announced it yet, probably November 12th and 13th. We have this book coming out right now, and we actually are going to do an Acapulco in 2021, just to let people know, but we're just in the planning stages of how we're going to make that happen. It's not going to be easy, but we'll make it happen. And I do want to just say, to finish off with the book, that if you go to, I think, dollarvigilante.com/book, we've got a whole page there where you can sign up to the pre-sales. And we're going to keep pre-sales up for about 2 weeks. And what we're trying to do is get enough people to buy the pre-sale, and it's under $10 on Amazon. And I think we're even looking to see if we can give a discount for the pre-sale. So it could be $7 or $8 or something.
Yeah, I'm going to discount. I'll set it up so that it's discounted for the pre-sale and then jumps to the normal price once it's available for everybody. But yeah,
that's great. Yeah, and I think the max you can charge for Kindle is $10 anyway.
It is. Yeah.
But we'll be offering it for even less than that if $1 or $2 makes a difference to you, and if it does, you really need this book. If you're like, I can't afford an extra $1, it's like, you don't know how things work. We'll help you out. And the more that people can just go there, please, and just hit the pre-sale button. If we can get that thing up to like 100,000 or something, everyone will start to talk about it. And then if it goes live and more people hear about it and start buying it, it's a very good chance Amazon will remove it, which is the best thing that could ever happen, because it's called the Barbara Streisand effect. You can go look up what that effect is. And they do it all the time. These people they're actually not very smart. They're actually almost like not even human, in my opinion. They have no creativity. And they can only copy us, it seems, these sort of people. I don't know what kind of things these people are, but so they don't even understand the Streisand effect. So every time they try to shut us down, they just make us bigger. It's hilarious. Yeah. So help us to do that. And just so everyone knows, we actually did spend a lot creating this book. And we're also going to donate 30% of all profits to Larkin Rose's Jones Plantation project. Yeah. So we'll end up at the end of the day with $1 or $2 from each book sold after we've given out all this money and everything, all that kind of stuff. But it's not about the money. So even if we sell like 1 million copies, it'll be probably $1 million we'll make. But 30%, 300,000 of that go to Jones Plantation, all that kind of stuff. And we actually spent a lot of money creating this book, and we spent 2.5 years. So if anyone's out there, I can't believe you guys want to keep $1 or $2 of this. It's like, we spent a lot of money and a lot of, more than anything, Charlie, just maybe to finish this off, it's not the time, it's the stress.
Yes.
For 2.5 years, I woke up almost every day. It's like, how am I going to finish this book, right? Yeah. Like, that was the hardest part. And it's literally, it took a lot. And, you're way more of a writer than me. And you helped me out so much just putting it into better format with a lot of the ideas. But just putting this all together was not easy. So for anyone out there who's like, I can't believe you're not giving 100% to charity. It's like, we've lost a ton of money and we've lost a lot of years off our life probably making this book. But the reason I want more people to buy it, it's not for the money. Maybe I'll even say if it makes more than $500,000, I'll give everything else to charity or something like that. I'm not trying to get rich off the book. What I want is everyone to get this book and make it go viral. And then the world could actually change.
Yeah, what I really want is I want this to get into that Amazon algorithm where it then starts suggesting it to people that would never in a million years look for a book like this, because those are the people that really need it the most. We need to wake them up. So if it's a book that appeals to you, great, buy it. If it's a book that you think is going to appeal to someone in your life that's having a hard time understanding that, definitely send it to them. It's you can let Jeff and I will be the bad guys. We'll wake them up for you. We don't mind. Just tell them this is a book written by the guy that was half naked running around Jeffrey Epstein's island. Right?
Actually, the best way to...
It should really, that should be on the cover. Let's be honest. It should just picture you with a glass of wine, run in Luke, and you're running and Luke's in front of you and you're booking out there. Oh man. I mean, look, we have to have fun doing this too. All right. So writing a book like this is stressful because you're researching everything. We have 254 footnotes in this book. So we're not pulling this information out of our ass. I assure you, it is fully sourced, well documented. It is what it is, man. It is the answer to what we see. It is an opportunity to position yourself away from this insanity while at the same time making, profiting possibly, depending on what you're into. But at the very least, getting yourself removed from this death system that they've got us in and to understand the system and how it's working, because when you understand it, you'll stop being fearful about it. And if you're fearful, you make bad decisions. You're in a different state of mind and you don't make the right decision. So if you can remove the fear because you now understand the plan, it will set you up to make decisions from a much better place of your, in your soul. You'll have a better map for figuring out where to go with things. And Jeff and I just have an interest in, we're trying to wake people up to this, because it's one thing that they're trying to destroy the whole world and trying to dominate and put us into a one world government. That's horrible enough. But if Jeff and I had to, if we knew the plan and didn't say anything about it, I don't think we could live with ourselves. So it's really important for us to get this information out there. If you like this video, take it, share it. Like we talked about, algorithms aren't going to be friendly to us. They're not going to help us. They're not going to get this out. It's going to be up to you to take this and put it on social media for as long as it'll last there. Who knows? Email it to your friends and family, but get the information out. Let's try and make this difference. Jeff, it's so much fun to hang out with you. You see the world. I love it. See, I'm an American, like a traditional American that fell for all the bullshit for a long, long time. But to have an ex-Canadian living in Mexico who's an anarchist, who puts on the largest anarchist convention in the world, it is such a treat for me, because you see the world in such a different way that it is extremely helpful, refreshing, and I just appreciate everything that you've done. So thanks for being a part of this whole thing, and thanks for having me be a part of it as well.
Oh, thank you. The book wouldn't have got done without you. 100% guaranteed would not have got done. So thank you as well for accepting the challenge. And it was quite a challenge. We're actually still in a bit of a challenge. It should be done by the time this video is up. But our graphic artist went missing. I hope she's okay. It's crazy. But it just seems like this thing has been so hard to get done, but we finally did it. And you're used to, you didn't even mention your book, but the Octopus of Global Control. People don't know it. Excellent precursor book. If you want to read something before this one comes out, that is very similar, but not exactly the same. Definitely check that out. It's a great book as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks everybody for watching. Share this and all that stuff. Thanks.